Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I am your host, John DeLynn. It is June 21st, 2019. We're recording and broadcasting live to you today from the Mormon Stories Podcast studios in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we are very, very excited, really honored and moved for today's interview. Today, we are going to be continuing our series on former Mormon bishops and their families. We just interviewed Scott and Joanna Purvis and their family for a wonderful interview. We've interviewed several other Mormon bishops, and we're going to continue that series today. We are also going to be continuing our new tradition, semi-new tradition of having children in a family be a part of the interview. And we are continuing our series on covering Mormon excommunication. So we're covering a lot today. Just to give you a little bit of background. So Jared and Gwen Lusk were raised Orthodox Mormons and, were married in the temple, had 6 children, served in lots of callings in the church, basically gave their lives to the church. Jared ended up becoming bishop in their Farmington, New Mexico ward. Jared and his wife Gwen set up a successful dental practice there. And again, just gave 45, 50 years of their lives to the Mormon Church. In 2015, Jared discovered the LDS Church's Gospel Topics Essays and started to question or learn more about Mormonism, and became a supporter of the Sam Young Protect LDS Children's movement. And long story short, when the stake president found out, he responded in a way that was quite challenging for the family. And again, long story short, Jared is facing excommunication this next weekend, so June 30th at the Farmington, New Mexico Stake Center, 6 p.m. Jared and his family face excommunication from the Mormon Church for simply being affected by the LDS Gospel Topics Essays that the church itself released, and for supporting Sam Young and his attempt to keep children from being sexually abused, and for just speaking publicly about his concerns or questions around the Gospel Topics Essays. So we think excommunications are barbaric and medieval, and the church needs to stop excommunicating people for having sincere doubts and questions about the church, for supporting the protection of children, all while they refuse to excommunicate and even protect rapists, child sexual abusers, etc. It's such a weird and strange, profound irony that in 2019 the church is excommunicating sincere former bishops and their families, people who have pure hearts and have worked really hard to serve the church for decades, while they continue to protect and defend rapists and child abusers at a large scale. So we're going to speak out about that for as long as we can. So anyway, that's what we're in for today. We are broadcasting this live on Facebook Live, so we really do, number one, invite any of you who are tuning in today to please right now share this live interview on your Facebook profiles, in Instagram, on Reddit, wherever you engage in social media, because we'd love to have as many live listeners as we can. If we can get 30 or 40 people to share this interview right now, I think we can have this domino effect of publicity that will help as many people as possible hear this important story and learn about it. And ultimately, we hope that the church just learns to leave these families alone and let people grieve and process their Mormonism and their faith crisis in whatever the way they want to, without facing the scarlet letter and the public shaming that is excommunication. And we just want to profile amazing families and their courage. So please share this this interview live wherever you can, and please encourage others to share it as well. We really appreciate that. And we also welcome your questions and comments. Hopefully we'll have some family members or friends or even ward members or stake members of the Lusk family who can bear testimony to their credibility and their integrity, and express their concerns about these actions. So that's what we're in for today. Thanks for joining us. And without any further ado, Gwen and Jared and Madison Lusk, thank you for driving all the way from freaking Farmington, New Mexico to do this interview.
Thank you for having us.
We're honored to do it.
That's good to have you. All right. So anything I got wrong in the introduction?
No.
All right. Okay. Well, let's begin then. Let's just start with your story. I guess, Jared, you're older than Gwen. Is that right?
I'm 5 years older,
Okay.
4.5.
Okay. So let's begin and have you tell a bit about your Mormon story, and we'll kind of establish your credibility as an Orthodox Mormon, and kind of what the church meant to you growing up, and then we'll have Gwen do the same thing, and then we'll talk about your story together. Is that okay?
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right.
All right, I was born in American Falls, Idaho. Had a wonderful childhood. My early years, my mother passed away when I was 3.5. So obviously that was a little bit trying, but I was pretty young. I have one random memory of her, but my dad remarried when I was 4.5, I think. And we lived in Idaho, and my dad moved around a lot. So we lived in Idaho and Utah and Colorado and kind of moved around a lot, but we were 100% all in the church my whole entire life. Do you want me to just keep going? And
Yeah.
just, like,
So how many kids again in your family?
in my family, there were, from my dad and my mom, I have one brother and one sister, and then my dad remarried, and then we have 4 other sisters. So there's 7 of us all together.
And again, how old were you and your mom?
3.5.
3.5. Okay. So do you have memories of her at all?
Just
or?
one couple little random memories.
Okay. So what was the role of the church in your family's life growing up?
It was the main focus and part of our life. You know, we always tried to read our scriptures, and we went to church every week. We were the normal Mormon family, I think you could say. I was the oldest in my family, the oldest sibling, and we like I say, we did move around a lot. I went to a different school every year for like the first 8 or 9 years of my life. So that was always difficult for me, I think, and it was I've got to the point where I hate change, and it's super difficult for me, but I'm finally learning a little bit how to cope with that, but it has been a challenge for me. But throughout my life, the church was I think it was the major focus of our life. I did scouts. I was an Eagle Scout when I was 13 years old. I was always super driven for everything I did, and I just kind of wanted to check off the boxes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily enjoy scouting, but I thought it was something that I had to do, so I did it.
Right. So you got your Eagle?
I did.
Okay. And so as far as like the family home evening and scripture study and all that stuff, and your parents trying to encourage you all to be spiritual and to follow the commandments, was your family pretty committed that way?
I mean, we were not perfect by any means, but more times than not, we always had family prayer, and we always had family scripture study and family home evening. My dad served a mission in what was the Great Lakes mission at the time. That would probably be the 50s, I would guess. And my mom, who he married second, served a mission in New Zealand. And so the church was the priority for us in our life.
Okay. And do you remember, I always like to ask this, did you have any favorite primary songs?
Honestly, probably "I Am a Child of God" was my favorite primary song.
Okay.
And "Families Can Be Together Forever."
How did you and your dad think about your mom having passed, and what role the church and its theology played in your beliefs, and being able to see her again? Was that important to you?
Yeah, honestly, I think that was the main focus for me all the time. That was the biggest, what you could say, my strongest point of my testimony, I think, was the plan of salvation, and families could be together forever, and that I would be able to see my mom again at some point.
Okay.
So without a doubt, that was the strongest. And I have always wondered, as I think back on my life, and I kind of think the church is shifting focus a little bit, but to me anyway, and maybe it was just my circumstance, I kind of feel like the focus of the church was never Christ for me, but it was always eternal families and the plan of salvation and the Book of Mormon, and not so much Christ. And so that's been a little bit of an issue for me growing up and getting older.
So do you remember like missing your mom and wanting to be with her and get to know her? And
I do remember that. And I remember weird memories, but I remember every night when we would have family prayer and I would say the prayer that we would ask Heavenly Father to bless Mama up in heaven. And occasionally, I mean, it wasn't super often, but occasionally I would have really deep conversations with my dad, and those were always super special to me.
yeah.
About my mom and just things like that. I wish, and we can talk about this later, my dad's passed, but I wish that I would have had more of those conversations and found out more details about his life and her life.
Do you know if your dad was sealed to both his first wife and his second? And can you
Absolutely,
talk about that?
he was. He's a polygamist. So he was sealed to his first wife. They were married in the Idaho Falls Temple, and then she passed. And then my second mom, he was sealed to her in the Provo Temple.
Okay. And did you ever discuss that, like growing up?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I don't remember exactly all of the conversations, but it was brought up from time to time, and it was talked about, not in depth. I don't think that I honestly don't think that was a comfortable conversation for my second mom to have.
So you kind of just avoided that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember in high school, like any of the typical battles around getting a firm testimony, struggling with the church's standards, going to seminary? Were you like the Nephi of your ward or your high school?
Honestly, I kind of think I was. I was a good kid. I didn't do anything wrong. I never tried a taste of alcohol. I kept the law of chastity. I was a good kid. I mean, I don't want to brag, but I was a good kid.
Okay. So
I went to seminary. I didn't always enjoy seminary. When I was growing up, my biggest focus was baseball. That's all I cared about, was playing baseball. And I remember specifically having thoughts that if it comes down to me playing baseball or going on a mission, I will play baseball.
Okay, so you loved baseball. Mm-hmm. Any other hobbies that were really important to you?
Pretty much baseball was it.
Did you have favorite team? There's no state team in New Mexico, right? There's
no. The Yankees, because my dad liked the Dodgers, and so that's how it was.
So there was a rivalry.
Yeah.
Your dad was a Dodger fan. And we interviewed Scott Purvis, and he's a Giants fan, and he hates the Dodgers. So you and Scott Purvis were not only former bishops, you also share a mutual hate for the Dodgers.
Correct.
But you're a Yankees fan.
And now I'm not so much a Yankees fan, but growing up, more so just because I liked the little rivalry with my dad. And kind of like the same thing with basketball. He would cheer for the Jazz, and I would cheer for the Bulls.
The Bulls. Okay. Yeah. All right. When the Jazz and the Bulls were like competing?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Did you have a hero, a baseball hero?
Yeah, probably Ted Williams.
Ted Williams?
Yeah.
That's old school.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was in high school and growing up, I read lots of biographies about baseball players and things like that. And I graduated from Springville High School. I went to Durango High School the first few years, and then we moved to Springville High School my senior year. Graduated in 1986, and we won the state championship that year.
Really?
Yeah.
And what position you played?
Second base.
You were second base. Were you a hitter? Were you a good hitter? Did you consider college ball? Mm-hmm. Did you play college ball?
I went to Snow College right after that and played that fall, but then I went on my mission and didn't play after that.
Okay. And you served your mission where?
Quito, Ecuador.
Oh, okay, Ecuador. So did you ever have like a faith crisis or a crisis of faith in high school, or did you ever doubt, or any reason to?
I would say there were some issues that I struggled with in high school, but it was not something that I really thought about a lot. When I went on my mission, I read the Book of Mormon the first time probably when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I read the Book of Mormon several times while I was growing up. I enjoyed reading the scriptures, and I did it, but I remember when I went on my mission, my biggest struggle was my actual belief in God. And to me, that's kind of weird, that you can grow up religious and that have a difficulty with believing in God. And it wasn't that I didn't believe him. I just didn't know how to process that information, because if in my mind I always struggled with the question, if there's a God and he created all of these things, then who created God and where does that end? And I struggled with that. And I remember when I went into the MTC, I had that struggle, and I thought, how am I going to go on this mission with this struggle and this difficulty with my belief in God? And I remember specifically one day going to the Provo Temple and thinking and fasting and praying that I had to have this answer to my question about God. Are you really there? Are you really, really there? And so I went to the temple that day in the MTC with that focus in mind, and honestly, I'm still waiting for that answer.
Okay. So what answer?
And I'm okay with not knowing now. I'm at peace with everything, but not really getting an answer that, yeah, God's there.
Okay. So you wanted to just kind of establish that personal connection with God, and you never, but you just, how did you reconcile that?
I kind of just put it on the back shelf and really tried not to think about it and focus on it.
Yeah. What type of response would you have liked to receive from God?
I don't know. I kind of wanted confirmation and some powerful spiritual experience that, yeah, he's there answering my prayers. And so basically how I reconciled it my whole entire life was that I had a testimony of Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith said that he saw God in Jesus. And so that's how I reconciled it, and that's how I dealt with my lack of testimony, I guess you could say, and my lack of knowledge that God is there, because Joseph Smith did. And I really, truly had a testimony of Joseph Smith based on everything that I had been taught and learned my whole entire life.
What did you love most about Joseph Smith? What were your favorite parts of that story?
I always thought the story was kind of miraculous, and I remember telling people all the time that if I wasn't born into the church and a missionary came and talked to me about that, I would never believe that. And so I don't know how I believed it, but I did. It doesn't make sense, I know, and I don't know, but I always admired Joseph Smith from the information that I had, that I thought that he was, persecuted, and he did these things and courageous, and God really did appear to him, and Jesus appeared to him, and he established the church. And so that was the basis of my testimony and my faith. My whole life was Joseph Smith.
Right.
It was powerful and strong. Okay. I had good feelings, when I'd see those movies that the church would put out, and when I would read the Book of Mormon or talk to people about the Book of Mormon, I would have those good, warm feelings.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, and as you kind of decided to serve a mission, to what extent were you just hoping for kind of the Mormon dream? What life were you hoping to lead? What were the main pillars or benchmarks that you
it's kind of weird when I look back and think about that time of my life. I always had planned on serving a mission, but like I said, I told myself if it came between playing baseball or serving a mission, I would play baseball. Mm-hmm. But I moved up here to Utah, and all of my friends that I graduated with were serving missions. Everybody went on a mission. So it was just kind of the thing that everybody did. And so that's what I did. I just turned my papers in and I went on a mission. I didn't necessarily give a lot of thought to it as far as what I planned to experience or what, if that makes sense. I just did it. It's kind of one of those things to check off. And I was excited about doing it, but at the same time, I was scared to death to do it.
Right. But you did it.
I did it.
Okay.
Going into the MTC, that was the most difficult time of my life.
Why?
Well, like I said earlier, that I had super difficult time with change. Anytime we would move, I would have lots of anxiety and things like that. And I didn't realize at the time that it was anxiety, and it's a real thing. And so when I went to the MTC, it was a huge change. And the atmosphere in the MTC is like, I always said, it was like jail. It's just like a completely different atmosphere in there, that there's so much control over you, and so I just hated it. It was like, it seriously was the worst experience of my life going into the MTC. Most first 2 or 3 weeks, I just felt alone and sad and depressed and super anxious, and it was difficult.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back to some of my upbringing and change all the time, and being uprooted all the time, and I didn't cope well with change.
Right.
So I didn't have a hard time when I went to Ecuador, but the MTC was difficult.
One of our listeners, Penny, is asking what years you served in Ecuador.
1987 to 89.
Okay. And how was your mission overall for you?
It was wonderful. I loved my mission. I have no regrets about serving my mission. I loved the people there. I served back in that time where there wasn't internet or anything like that. And so I've had a hard time staying in touch with some of those people, although there's a couple of them that I have been able to stay in touch with. And I love those people. I know when I came home and I met Gwen, it was kind of irritating to her because I would say how much I loved my mission all the time, and that I could go back and live there and keep serving my mission. So I loved it.
Right. Okay. And did your mission president encourage you to get married as soon as you got home, or?
I don't honestly, I don't remember that being advised to him. I loved my mission president. I still do. Him and his wife are one of my favorite people, and I will always have a great love for them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Gwen, I think it's your turn. Tell us about your Mormon cred and your upbringing.
Okay, so I come from a long line of Mormons. Like every one of my lines goes like clear back to Joseph Smith. So I'm at least 6 generations, and one line I'm the 8th generation of Mormon. I don't know if you want me to introduce myself to all of my 2 million cousins with dropping names of famous people.
Yeah, that's important.
So there's Alexander McCrae, who was in Liberty Jail with Joseph Smith.
Okay.
He's the tall guy. There is Morton Mortensen. His family was in the Willie Handcart Company, and he stayed on a mission. That's a story I've heard people tell over, Pioneer Day a lot. Tarleton Lewis, Hans Mill Massacre. Lot Smith, he was a captain in the Mormon Battalion. And am I missing anybody? Oh, Christopher Layton. Yeah, he actually had the most children of any Mormon polygamist. He had like 63 or 64. He's Layton, Utah is actually named after him. So, yeah, I come from a long line of
She's famous.
Of polygamous Mormons. So
that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the pedigree. Where were you raised in the church?
So I was born in Safford, Arizona, and then my family moved to Colorado, Durango, Colorado, when I was 3 years old. So, and I grew up there. My parents still live there. So I had a lot of stability in my family, so I didn't have to move around.
Okay. And so you're a Colorado girl?
I am, yes.
Yeah. And what was that like growing up in the church in Colorado?
So there's not very many members there. There's just not a lot of members. So, in my high school, there's just a handful of members. So it's completely different than growing up in Utah. But yeah, so I'm really bad at this.
No, what do you mean
I
you're bad
don't
at
want to
this?
interrupt, but one thing, I don't know whether it's cool or not about Colorado, is we have to take early morning seminary. And so there's some good experience with early morning seminary in in Colorado, and she can talk about that probably.
So, okay. So again, and we're having just a couple technical difficulties, so forgive me if I'm asking questions that are repeats. So you're of how many kids?
There's 7. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters.
And you are where in the birth order?
I am the 3rd. So I have an older sister,
Okay.
an older brother, and then
Okay.
2 little sisters and 2 little brothers.
Okay.
So.
And again, forgive me if I'm repeating. So your parents were married in the temple?
Yes. And my dad served as bishop twice when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
So the first
Okay.
time was short. He had a heart attack and got released. And
In Durango?
actually, we lived outside of Durango, rurally in Red Mesa, Colorado. Shout out to you people there.
Okay.
So he served as a bishop to the Red Mesa ward in the Durango, Colorado stake.
Okay. And so he was bishop twice when you were growing up?
Yes.
And what were the family traditions related to the church that were important to your family?
Every morning, my mom would make breakfast, and then while we ate, then she would read out of the Book of Mormon to us.
Okay.
And we had family prayer morning and night. We had family home evening every Monday. We went to Mutual every Wednesday. We did everything. We were super devout. So.
Okay. And do you remember what the church meant to you as a kid?
Yeah, it was like I never not remember not having a testimony. Like it was just something, like I always thought when they tell you about the gifts of the Spirit, that was one of my gifts, that I always had faith. And I never doubted that the church was true. I just always knew that it was true.
You always knew?
Always knew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have favorite things about the church growing up?
When I was little, I loved primary. I loved the singing in primary, so that was fun. And when you
Did you have favorite songs?
I loved all of the songs.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, they were all.
None stuck out as like. really
like
special.
families can be together forever. I think everybody. Or I love to see the temple, and
Yeah.
songs like that.
Okay.
And when you're little, Jesus wants me for a sunbeam, and once there was a snowman. You like all those
Yeah.
action songs.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Do you remember young men's, young women's, and what that meant to you?
Yeah, that was good. Our ward was fairly, I don't know, I guess we were probably about medium sized. I had lots of friends, and we always had a really good time. When I was back in the day, because I'm getting really old. We used to play basketball and volleyball. We would have stake tournaments, so we would have to go practice for those, and we did a road show once or twice, and there was a lot of fun things that we did, so it was good.
And theologically, what did the church mean to you, just belief wise, especially in your teenage years?
So
what role
growing
did it
up
play?
in a place where it's not predominantly Mormon, it's a little bit harder because you're so different, and Durango's a really big. It's kind of a hippie town. It's probably a normal town. I don't know. Anyway, that you're not partying, with people, and I don't know. It's just. I forgot the question again. I'm really nervous.
Like your beliefs and the behaviors, like how did Mormonism influence your teen years, both in terms of how you looked at life, the world, your future?
Yeah, so I don't know. I think
other kids.
Yeah, with that. So it was hard just to keep your standards because there's so, nobody lives their life like that. And it's hard. I would say I was definitely not a perfect child, unlike my husband, but.
You mean as a teen?
As a teen.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't terrible person or whatever. And
I'm not digging for dirt, but just because many people are going to relate to
Right.
this, like law of chastity stuff, word of wisdom stuff.
A little bit of both.
Okay. So
not to extreme on any of those.
But you just a normal kid.
Yes, once or twice, you
tried some things.
Yes.
You were a little mischievous. Were you racked with guilt? Were you
totally.
What was that like? What was
it was horrible. Yeah, you feel like you let God down, you let your family down, you let yourself down. Like it's you just you feel awful. Awful.
But also sometimes that can torment you, and sometimes it can also though keep you from like getting out of control. So as you look back, is there a part of you that's great? Like,
Oh, I totally think
grateful
so.
for the standards.
Yeah,
like,
I think so. Yeah, because I don't think that people in high school have any business drinking or having sex. So I'm glad that, that those are standards.
So even though you felt guilt and shame,
right,
you also maybe kept you out of trouble.
I think so. So there's definitely some blessing there for sure.
So would you say overall your Mormon experience growing up was positive and productive?
Yes, I think so.
It was.
Yeah,
Were you pretty
good.
happy? Were you pretty?
I'm a happy person. Yeah, I was very happy.
But your family, you felt, was happy, and your life was happy, and you were.
We had a good life. Yeah,
Okay.
we were happy.
Okay.
So we had a happy family.
And what were you looking forward to? Like how did you want your life to go as like a teenage Mormon girl?
Yeah, I don't know. My family is really, traditional, Orthodox. Like being a stay-at-home parent was like super pushed for some reason in my family. Like that was like, because that's what my mom did. I don't know. So I just like felt like that was the only career choice that I had, was that I would grow up, get married, and be a mom.
Did you have interests in other things?
I did. Like I have a bright mind. Like I'm not stupid. I don't know. But to me, it was almost like there wasn't really an option. And I love babies. So, it sounded good, and it was, I don't know.
Okay. So you wanted to follow that typical Mormon route of marrying a returned missionary and getting married in the temple, and having kids and being a stay-at-home mom and all that, and raising righteous kids.
That's right.
Sounds perfect.
It is. It's the Mormon dream.
Sounds like everything's on track.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how did you guys meet? Did you serve a mission or?
No,
Okay,
I did not. There's actually a little interesting story behind all of this. So Jared got home from his mission. He actually had to be released early for medical reasons. He fell off a building and broke his leg.
Oh, no.
Crushed his heel, almost, and broke his back, almost died. Anyway.
On your mission? Okay, let's talk about that. So, like, missionary safety has been something that we've covered on Mormon Stories in the past. How in the world did you get hurt on your mission?
Well, I was screwing around, honestly.
Okay.
And
well, missionaries do that.
yeah, they do. We're
You're
kids.
not the only one.
We're kids. And I don't know if people are going to be familiar with this or not, but in Ecuador, at least, in February, they have, at least when I was there, they had what they called carnival. And it was just a big party. And so everybody's out messing around and stuff. And so the missionaries kind of got involved in that a little bit. And so we went to and this was kind of a common occurrence. We'd go to the top of our 4-story building apartment where we lived. And that's where we did our clothes washing and things like that. And we would throw balloons at people. We'd have water fights with people. And I honestly don't have any idea how it happened, but I threw a balloon at somebody and I fell off that building. I don't know how it happened.
Oh, man.
And so I fell 40 feet and landed on my feet and crushed my heel and broke my back. And I was in the hospital in Ecuador for a couple weeks before they sent me home.
What's an Ecuadorian hospital like?
Where the actual accident took place was in a rural, no medical attention at all. And so they took me to the little clinic that was there and tried to stitch me up and from my head that got cut, and it ended up getting infected. But kind of a cool story on that is they didn't have an ambulance or anything like that to take me to Quito, which was about 3 hours away. So they took me in a hearse, an old hearse that they transported me to the Quito hospital. And actually the hospital in Quito was pretty good, and I'm grateful for that. And I think I was taken good care of, and I survived, but barely. I got what they call adult respiratory distress syndrome, and my lungs filled up with fluid, and I had to be intubated for 10 days, and I almost died. I was super close to dying, and it was kind of a spiritual experience for me at the time, honestly, because I felt like my mom was there with me. And so that always was, and I don't know how to explain that, but so because I had a broken leg, they sent me home 2 months early from my mission, and so I came home and she harassed me until I said yes.
So how'd you guys meet?
So his family was in the same ward as we.
Oh, okay.
So so when he while he was on
the
his
first time you
mission,
saw him was when he got home?
his family had lived in our ward years before, and then they moved back to Utah. And then while he was on his mission,
Okay.
his family moved back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so when he was sent home from his mission or released from his mission, then he was in our ward. So, and I was 16 years old.
You were 16.
Yes.
And you thought he was cute.
He was so cute.
Really?
Yes.
What'd you like about him?
Honestly, well, he's super cute, and he has a super he has a super fun personality, and I loved his spiritualness. Like I could see that in him, and he seemed like the spiritual giant. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put my rebel ways behind me, is just because I wanted somebody like that in my life.
He turned the bad girl good. You weren't a bad girl, but he.
Something like, and I wasn't really a bad girl,
I was
but
kidding, I'm kidding.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I just wanted, like, I stopped saying bad words, and it was the first time in my life where I told you that I always thought that I had a testimony, but I had never like got down on my knees and like asked, like the Moroni promise. And so I did that. And, I just wanted to just be worthy of somebody like him.
Wow. Jared,
Yeah.
you had a lot of power.
I had no power at all. I was on crutches and I couldn't run very fast.
Well, you were.
That is how I got him. So this, like,
He couldn't run away.
he couldn't run away. He would have ran off to Utah and like married some Utah girl. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I really didn't try hard to run at all. I thought she was cute, but I knew she was young, and that was kind of scary for me. So I didn't run away, but I allowed her to pursue me, if that makes sense.
So what'd you like about Gwen, Jared? It's the 16-year-old girl, kind of young.
I know.
Kind of young for a 21-year-old.
We're probably going to get all kinds of comments now, but she was beautiful, and her personality was amazing. She was always smiley and happy, and she was just perfect.
So was it for you? Was it like kind of love at first sight kind of thing, or what?
I would say so.
Yeah. So you knew as soon as you saw her and you got home that she was the one.
Yeah, I kind of had that thought. Yes.
Okay. And okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
But I think that's how every missionary feels when they get home and the first girl they see. I've said a million times my whole life, I just got lucky.
Okay.
I truly believe that, because I see so many people that have those same thoughts and feelings and they're not as lucky. Where it worked out for us, and I was lucky, and I'm grateful.
That's good. Okay. And so Gwen did same thing for you, love at first sight?
yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
All right.
So
how did you guys handle falling in love when you're like underage and
I know.
he could be put in jail? Like what?
Yeah, it's crazy. My parents were actually supportive of it. And my dad actually hired him. And I actually worked for my dad in the summers. My dad is also a dentist, like Jared. And I assisted in the summer times with him. And so we fell in love in a dental office. It's
Yeah.
very romantic.
Okay. Okay, wait. So your dad was a dentist?
Yes.
Okay. And so he was kind of a mentor to you. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes, definitely.
Definitely a mentor.
I always looked up to him very much.
Okay. Okay. So you were working there in the dental office with her, and Dad's being sneaky, trying to get you guys to.
Well, I don't know that he would encourage the relationship, but once he saw that it was happening, like they really loved him and respected him, and he's a great person, and they could see that, and like I couldn't do better. So, yeah.
Okay, so how did you guys handle the age difference and the timing of that and waiting, or did you not wait?
So interesting. Like we got married, and it was a few months short of my 18th birthday.
A few months shy. Yes. That's a reference to the
So-
Gospel Topics essay on polygamy, right? And-
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So you were 17 when you got married?
I was, yes.
And was that legal or?
So my mom signed, I'm child bride. My mom, she came with us because we got married in the temple. And so we had to get a marriage license in Utah. So we drove to Monticello. And she had to come with us and sign for me.
Did that feel early for you? 17 years old, or were you ready?
It did, but like I'm so proud of the 17-year-old me. Like, good job, way to go! Like I would never change it. Like it's weird, and I wouldn't like recommend it for anybody, but it worked for me.
Awesome.
Like no regrets.
What did you want to say, Jared?
Honestly, that age difference and everything was difficult for me because I understood that it was not normal. You know, it was not a good thing. And I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't a good thing, but I was in love with her and I had pushback. I mean, there was pushback. My sisters did not like it. My parents weren't that in favor of me doing that. And there was lots of ward members and things that didn't think it was okay. So it wasn't all easy from that standpoint, from my perspective, because obviously I'm the predator, I guess. I don't know. So it was difficult a little bit, but I knew it was the right thing.
Okay. So what was anything about your temple wedding, the temple ceremony, anything noteworthy there that you guys want to share?
I don't know. I guess the one piece of advice that I really like that he gave us is that he told Jared that he needed to keep his wedding ring shiny, and the best way to do that was washing dishes.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think, okay, like when I went through the temple the first time before my mission, I thought it was weird. I wasn't.
And you were there pre the changes, so the death oaths and the
I had all the death
slitting
oaths and
disemboweling
all
and
of that stuff.
and the weird shield with the washings and anointings where they're touching your naked body and putting oil on it. You went through like I did.
Yes. And so I thought that was weird. And I remember specifically sitting in the temple that first time and I think, oh my gosh, I am so glad that all my friends cannot see me in here. And so I didn't really, it didn't damage me or anything like that, but I definitely thought it was strange. And then when Gwen went through, those penalties were gone.
Yeah.
At that time.
barely.
By 90, they removed them.
1990, so
Yeah. Okay. You missed it.
I missed it barely. Yeah.
Okay.
But I had I think I'd told you a little bit about the temple. And so I think it wasn't a super shock to her. Where I went, they didn't tell me anything,
Yeah.
you know, and so it was kind of a little bit weird. And then when she went, it was, you know, she went and did her endowments, and then the next day we got married. And so I think when you go and do it that way, you're not really focused on the endowments or anything like that. You just want to get to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. How did you guys survive? Was it dating 2 years? 1 year?
1 year.
That's interesting.
How did you stay chaste and pure? Or and again, I'm not trying to dig for details, but like, was that hard?
It wasn't actually. Our wedding was pushed up a little bit, and my dad was our bishop, which is really fun. But we were going, because I was still in high school, because I have a November birthday, so I was late. So I was going to graduate early in January, and then we were going to get married. But he said that his advice was, it's better to marry than to burn. And so we got married in July.
While you were still in high school?
And so
my gosh, you were married in high school.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that before.
There you go.
What was that like? Like all your kids are like
super weird.
cheerleaders in high school
Super
and
weird,
prom
so
and
weird.
homecoming, and you're getting
and my
married.
name changed, so weird. Yeah. So
Did you
weird.
bring your husband to the high school dance? Like, how does
We never went to prom.
I know, I missed out on prom because I was married and he wouldn't go.
I've never heard of that before. That's so cool and creepy and cool.
Madison, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, don't do
We're
it.
already in the clear. I'm graduated, so.
Okay, so all right, so So you're saying by moving it up, you were able to stay chaste?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what we're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although if we're being honest, we weren't perfectly chaste to go to the temple, but
And you end up fibbing about that, or just
I don't know. I think you just kind of just like, I mean,
it's all a blur.
yeah, and you don't do the actual deed, so you consider yourself worthy, I guess, is what it is.
As long as you don't
don't
actually
cross.
have intercourse.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for.
If you work around the edges,
Yes.
you justify it.
Mm-hmm. You're still a virgin, so you're worthy.
I can relate to that a little bit.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Margie and I, did our best.
well, and here's the thing too, and I don't remember with you, but I know it changed. And when the covenant I made in the temple was to not have sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
They changed that now, but that's the covenant that I made. So
you were a letter of the law. You were obedient to the letter of the law. Good for you. Okay, cool. So you get married in the temple, and was it kind of like a dream marriage? And how did it go?
It was good. I mean, just like the weirdness of being in high school is really weird, but it was good. It was fun. That first year playing house, and we just had a great time. It was wonderful.
So what did you guys end up doing education-wise? How did that go? College and everything?
So the first was a year
It was 1 year.
of school before my mission, and then I went 2 years after my mission. So I had a year before we got married, and then I guess we had 1 year of school while we were married for me to get all my prerequisites and everything to get into dental school. I didn't get an undergraduate degree because I just did all my prerequisites. And
So dental school doesn't require a bachelor's?
not necessarily, but pretty much you need to have one. But I had super good GPA, and I did really good on the DAT test, and I had all the prerequisites, so I was accepted to a few dental schools.
You went to Creighton, is that right?
I went to Creighton University,
which is in
Omaha,
Nebraska. Okay. And that's a good school. That's a solid school.
Yeah, it's a very good school, and we had a wonderful time. It was some of the greatest years of our lives, I think.
Were there a bunch of other Mormons in dental school?
Creighton University is a Catholic school, but there's a lot of Mormons that go to Creighton.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Mormons are overrepresented in the dental and orthodontist industries.
No, I don't know why that is, but that's absolutely true.
So were there a bunch of Mormon couples in dental school with you guys?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was great.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have friends from those years?
Oh, yeah.
That you still stay in touch with?
Yep.
Okay, so anything noteworthy? So I imagine you started having kids pretty quickly.
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years. Yeah. So I worked the first year he was in dental school, and then we had our baby. And then I stayed home after that. So, yeah.
So we had 2 kids when we graduated from dental school.
Okay, wow. Yeah. And was dental school super hard? Is it really brutal or not that bad? Or
It's super hard and super intense and very time consuming. And
were you guys apart a lot?
yeah,
Yeah. A lot of studying. And it's 8 hours of class. 8 hours of class, and then, 8 hours a night of studying. So, yeah.
Let's do this. Take that mic, and you guys just each have your own mic, and then you'll pass it to Madison when she's ready. Madison, you can just swivel that out of the shot. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. That way we won't have to pass the mic back and forth. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay, so was it brutal, like having kids while he's in dental school? Was it not that bad?
It wasn't that bad. Like, we lived in this little townhouse where, there was a lot of other dental students and Mormons that did that with kids. And so we had a pretty good support system there. So it was good.
How do you guys remember those days overall?
Really fondly. It was, it was just fun.
I tell my kids and people all the time that those were some of my favorite times, because even though it was hard and difficult, life was so simple, and we didn't have really anything to worry about. And, we were poor and didn't have any money. And so, I don't know, it's just simple.
But you're on the fast track to wealth, right? I mean, it's kind of cool to...
Yeah.
to be in one of those professions like medicine or dentistry where you know you're going to end up doing okay. Was that nice? Was that kind of cool to?
Yeah, it was always good to have that in your head that you knew you weren't always going to be like this, and
you're going to have
going to be a good future.
Let's see. Kyle wants to know what years you were at Creighton.
I graduated in 95, so I was 91 to 95.
Okay. All right, Kyle. 91 to 95 is the answer. Okay, so we can fast forward or not. Like, is there from the time you finished dental school, setting up the practice to you becoming bishop, what do you want to tell about your story that you think is interesting? Did you guys do family home evening? Did you do scripture study? Was the church a really important part of your lives?
I think from the time even while we were dating, we would read scriptures together and we would say prayers while we were dating. So it always has been, that's the priority that we always had. That was the main priority. When I was in dental school, I had callings in church. I was in the stake young men's presidency in dental school.
Yeah, and I was in the primary presidency when we were in Omaha.
As busy as it is, I don't know how we did it, but we managed to do that. And then once we graduated, we continued those things, and still that was our focus, is to follow that track and be as faithful as we could.
Was marriage hard those early years? Did you love it? Was it brutal?
We've never had struggles in our marriage. I mean, obviously we have fights or whatever, but we've always had like a good, solid marriage.
Okay.
I don't remember any major challenges or anything like that. I mean, honestly, now I look back on it, I was a jerk and selfish and young and dumb, and I could have treated her better, I'm sure. But we got along good, and it was wonderful.
Was he sometimes not a sensitive husband?
Well, when you're a stay-at-home mom and you're with the kids, like, you don't get a day off, you don't get a night off. Like, it's 24/7, 365. And it probably would have been nice to have a break now and then. Like, when you have 6 kids, you're always pregnant, you always have a baby. It's just super challenging. And, you know, he developed new hobbies. Like, he loves to hunt, and he would go on hunts and leave me with the kids. And it was hard to, not have any adults then to talk to. So
that's it's probably a modern problem. It's not just a Mormon problem. I think it's also a function of patriarchy. It's just,
I think so.
Men go do manly things, sports and hunting and, callings, and women stay home.
Yep. And he was always out doing church callings. He's had every calling in the book. So, and, Sunday mornings were a challenge, trying to get, 6 kids ready for church all by myself.
You know what's crazy about that is how we don't, as men anyway, and I'm speaking for myself because, like, my boys are a lot better than I was. But when I look back on it, how I didn't realize that and how I didn't see that. I was just oblivious. It wasn't that I was doing anything like that on purpose and abandoning her and leaving there with the kids. But I didn't know. I had no idea that it was so difficult for her. And this will sound crazy and maybe shed light on my lack of intelligence or something, but I didn't fully comprehend it until just recently when Gwen was home with our grandbaby for
a couple months,
yeah. And it was super hard, and for some reason it clicked and I was able to see it then. But like I say, I think the new generation coming up is a lot better at that, at participating in that.
They're a lot better at a lot of things. We'll get to that. Don't fall asleep, Madison. We're coming to you.
I'm not. I'm wide awake.
Okay. All right. So living the Mormon dream. Anything else you want to talk about your story prior to sort of? We'll talk about Jared becoming bishop, but anything? You ended up having 4 kids after dental school.
Yep.
And this was all you moved back to Durango.
Yeah, so Durango, Colorado, and Farmington, New Mexico. Farmington, New Mexico. They're like 60 miles apart.
Okay.
So they're really close in proximity.
And you said, so you did, but you didn't set up dental practice in Durango or nearby.
No.
Why not go into partnership with her dad and take over his practice?
Her dad's practice was in Farmington, and I started with him.
Oh, okay.
And I did work there for 5 years.
I think so. Yeah,
about 5 years, and then it just wasn't working out as good as both of us had anticipated, and so I moved and started my own practice in the same town, but I just started my own.
That's nice to kind of break out on your own.
Yeah.
And sometimes it
It
can get
worked out.
messy.
It worked out better, I think.
Okay. And what's it like being a dentist? Different things there's obviously it's a good living. I hear that it can have a really good lifestyle where you can make it where you're working 3 or 4 days a week and get time off. Obviously the money can be good. I've also heard there's a high depression and suicide rate because of the repetitiveness of it. What's it like?
I think all of those things are true. I honestly love it. And there's things that I don't love so much about it, but it's been a wonderful career and I love doing the work. I love changing people's lives by changing their smiles and making them feel better. And it's satisfying and I truly love it. And I've told people a lot of times, if I could do it for free, I would do it for free. So I do love it. I think the part that's difficult sometimes is, and this is for me anyway, you're in a solo practice all by yourself. And so and this is changing a little bit because there's more corporate dentistry and more group practices and things like that. But when you're alone, treating these things and it's a stressful thing because it's so small. You're working in a super small confined space and, it's stressful and people don't want to be there. And so that's kind of stressful sometimes. And that can wear on you a little bit because you don't have other people right there to talk with and things like that. So,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
But you're still loving it.
I do.
Okay.
And
All
it's
right.
true. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the flexibility with time. And it's great to have 3-4 day weekends all the time. And, that is a big draw, I think.
Okay. So, anything about your Mormon lives before, Jared, you become bishop? Anything else you want to say?
I think it was just the typical Mormon lifestyle. Our main focus and our main drive was that we get all of our kids in the temple and on missions, and we served every calling and we just did the best that we could.
Yeah. Okay.
I was in a bishopric. I was on the High Council, Elders Quorum president, Young Men's president forever. So honestly, most of those callings I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy being on the stake High Council at all. That was my least favorite calling ever.
Because you're not, personality-wise, you've told me you're not an extrovert.
Correct.
Probably those talks.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy giving those talks. And I was super young at the time, and I just felt awkward going into other bishops and counseling them and, going into these meetings, and it just was awkward.
Sure. Okay. And it's a pretty hectic life raising 6 kids and having all these callings in church. I also imagine you guys became a really important part of the church in Farmington. Is that right? Like one of those model families or tell me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I wouldn't want to brag about that.
Yeah.
Or anything,
And I'm not asking for you to brag, but I'm just trying to think about how Mormon words work, especially in the mission field, which is anything outside of Utah. That's always a weird thing. But there'll be these families of prominence,
right? And
more
that would
affluent,
be
larger
us.
family.
Yes, that
the
would be
callings,
us.
and you just
Well, and we have amazing, great kids who everybody loves our kids, and they were leaders in the word themselves. And so I think just because I had such great kids that they made me look like I was a really great mom. And, we just were a good, strong, solid family.
yeah.
So
kind of like the ideal family for what the church would want.
exactly. Yeah. I've listened to a lot of Mormon Stories podcasts, and a lot of people, they feel like they don't quite fit in, socially. There's a lot of issues with that. I fit in Mormon culture. That was me, it worked for me.
You loved
I loved it. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. You too, Jared?
So,
I certain things I loved about it, but I was burned out, honestly, on having to be the one in charge all the time. I didn't seek after callings. I didn't want them. I didn't want to be a bishop. I didn't want to be in the bishopric. I didn't want to be elders quorum. I didn't want to do any of those things because I like to sit on the back row and not say anything.
Yeah.
But I was also taught to never say no to a calling, and so I was always a yes man, and I always said yes, and I always did what they asked me to do.
And he did it very well. He's a good leader.
Yeah.
He really is a good teacher.
It's got to be some of the best leaders are the ones who don't want to be there, but do it out of devotion or commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not because they aspire to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I truly loved the people that I served. I really did. I loved them, and I loved the youth more than anything. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Whether I was in the young men's president or bishop, that was my focus.
Right.
I went to Relief Society as bishop maybe one time in 5 years.
Oh, yeah? Wait, you went to what?
Well, I'm just saying my focus when I was bishop was the youth. I didn't go to Relief Society. I went there one time maybe because I had to.
Okay. Just a few quick comments from the audience. Aubrey says their daughter is seriously so pretty.
Oh,
She is.
Sweet.
You're getting shout outs for your beauty, Madison. Well, I'm guessing she's also very wise and astute. So we'll get that. We'll get that
She
part
is. She's
of. We'll get
the
that
whole
part of
package.
Madison soon, and courageous. But thanks for that shout out, Aubrey. Diamond writes, "Seems like they had a great life," and she's basically saying it seems like Gwen didn't miss anything getting married early.
No, I didn't.
For you, the Mormon life
Yeah,
worked
it did.
for both of you guys.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, you were kind of living the Mormon dream.
totally.
And like with all the people in Mormon Stories who will tell the story that things didn't work out well, you guys were like white, upper middle class, educated, privileged in so many ways. The church was made for you and you were made for the church.
Yep.
And it was smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing.
It's true. I mean, we have no regrets about any of that. I mean, there might be a couple, but overall, no.
Yeah. Yeah, you were living the Mormon dream. Really quickly, Madison, can you just share any memories you have or perspectives you have on your family's life prior to your dad becoming a bishop? And you can talk about your early years and what the church meant to you, all that.
Yeah, I mean, the church was like, they talked about the main focus of our family. I always remember having family scripture study, having family prayer, and just wanting to be like a good Mormon kid, honestly. Like when I turned 8 years old, I got baptized, got a Book of Mormon, and I like read it all the way through when I was 8 years old. But yeah, it was
Really?
always,
That's pretty remarkable for an 8-year-old.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how much I got out of it. Like I was
Of
just trying
course.
my best to understand it, but yeah, that was a big part of like my life, was just studying my scriptures, saying my prayers, and just trying to be a good Mormon kid, I guess.
Yeah. And again, tell us where you are in the birth order.
I'm the 5th out of 6 kids.
5th out of 6. So you were a younger sister.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you look up to your older siblings?
Oh, yeah.
Were they like righteous and Nephi and all that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely like where I got part of my testimony, was watching my parents and my older siblings be like good devout Mormons, and I wanted to do that and live my life like that.
Okay. Did you have a favorite primary song?
I like the song, like the one about the rainbow. I like to look for rainbows. I don't remember what
Yeah,
it's
that's
called.
Carolyn Pearson. No, I don't think that is. But what's it about? What did you like about it?
Yeah, it's about baptism. I just thought
like-
it was a nice, peaceful
I like
song.
to look
Yeah.
for rainbows whenever they're. That's a newer one. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get baptized at 8, and so what were your teen years like prior to your dad becoming bishop? How old were you when your dad became bishop?
I was younger. He got released when I was 13, maybe, somewhere around there.
Oh, so he was
So-
bishop for your
Yeah, for my early years.
for those early years,
Yeah.
prior to right up until you became a beehive, basically.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I had, like, he interviewed me a few times for my temple recommends and stuff like that, but it was mostly like when I was in primary that he was bishop.
So what's it like being a child and having your dad as bishop? What's that like?
You know, honestly, like, I didn't really struggle with it. I kind of looked up to my dad for, like, being a leader and seeing what he was, like, doing for our ward and seeing him just, like, lead our ward, I guess. But, yeah, I didn't really struggle with him, like, being gone or, that kind of thing. Just because I was so young, it didn't really faze me, I guess.
Did you feel pressure to be a good kid because your dad was bishop?
Yeah, definitely.
Was
I
that
did.
positive pressure or negative pressure? Like, did you get into that, or were you
I think-
overwhelmed by the pressure?
I don't really think I was overwhelmed. I think it was mostly positive that I just wanted to live a good life like they did, I guess.
And no feelings of like unworthiness or any of that stuff?
Not really when I was a kid.
Okay. Sometimes in Mormonism, there are these families that are kind of the model Mormon family in perception, but behind the scenes, there's all sorts of problems, and the parents are pressuring the kids to live up to the image, but it's all sorts of brokenness on the inside. It sounds like that wasn't your family. It sounds like you guys, it was working for you. Can you attest to whether or not you guys were actually living what the image was behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think for the most part. I mean, we weren't like perfect, but I think for the most part, yes, definitely. We were doing our best and doing pretty good at it.
Okay. All right. And so prior to your dad, becoming bishop and up until that time, you were just loving your Mormon experience. Mm-hmm. Is that
Definitely.
right? Anything else you want to tell before we kind of move to the next part of the story?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay, fun. All right. Well, this is going to end part one of this interview. We're so glad everyone's joining us on Facebook Live. Aubrey says, "Thanks for saying my name right. No one ever does." I wonder how they say it. All right. Oh, Heber writes, Jared and Gwen were the trek leaders for the surrounding 4 stakes. Boston Ann and I were supposed to have been Maz and Paz on that trek, but Boston was pregnant, so we withdrew. It was a crazy trek with all kinds of rain and insanity. They were amazing. I went up there for Bishop's Night and met with the youth in our ward in each of their campsites. Now, would that have been after you were a bishop? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get to that. But a huge shout out to Heber and Boston. Hinkie, is that how you pronounce it? They're awesome. We're going to be interviewing them hopefully soon. But they're friends of yours from Durango. And have they been important parts of your journey?
Oh, yeah. They were first people that reached out to us. Yes, they were the first people that reached out to us, and they've been super supportive and amazing. Yes.
So shout out to Heber and Boston. Also, Heber's a former bishop, so we'll be continuing the series with them. All right, so we're going to end this first part, and thanks for everyone for comments and questions, and we're going to pick right back up